The federal government is about to start work on a stretch of new highway south of New Orleans. The right-of-way through generally useless marshland was purchased for $170,000 from a man named Carlos Marcello. Now the Justice Department is checking to see what kind of pressures are involved in the deal. For a report on Marcello and his land, here is ABC's Don Farmer in New Orleans.
Carlos Marcello is a 5-foot 1-inch, 60-year-old alleged mafia boss of Louisiana. In recent years, the government says Marcello has turned to legitimate business and that he's been getting rich on both sides of the law. The Marcello family's influence is felt here in the nightlife along Bourbon Street. Tourists come and spend money in the family bars. The Marcellos also own 2 sightseeing bus companies which bring the tourists to the clubs. 11 years ago, Marcello bought what was then worthless marshland near New Orleans. His cost for about 7,000 acres was around $1 million. Now, the government is planning an interstate highway through the swamps owned by Marcello. Several routes have been proposed and altered, and the final choice has not been determined. But it will be hard to avoid the Marcello property.
The Churchill Farms area, which is one of 3 major land areas owned by them, is estimated to ultimately produce in the neighborhood of $100 million in profit for the Marcellos upon full development.
Critics of the highway say Marcello plans a private airport and a marina on his land, which would be served by the interstate road. He also could make enormous profits on new hotels, restaurants, and other services.
Since 1953, Carlos Marcello has been under order of deportation from this country as an undesirable alien, based upon previous convictions as a narcotics wholesaler, for armed robbery. It may well be that the taxpayers of this country in the last 17 years have spent somewhere close to $1 million in the unsuccessful effort to deport him. Now, the reason he is able to repeatedly defeat government efforts to suppress his activities is because he is so wealthy, and his wealth is something we now intend to implement through the construction of a major highway.
Marcello's land already runs along part of busy Highway 90, and he's done well there with various enterprises. He has the money and the experience to do the same near the interstate. Unquestionably, New Orleans does need a perimeter highway to relieve the flood of traffic from the city's old and narrow streets. But there are people here and in Washington who wonder if the price of progress must in fact include a financial windfall for Carlos Marcello, a man the federal government says should be either in prison or out of the country. Don Farmer, ABC News in New Orleans.